Hi everyone, welcome to lecture number 29, the first lecture on wage structure. In our last module, we discussed on compensating wage differentials. We discussed about why this compensating wage differential arises and the workers' reservation price, which bribes the workers to go for some kind of risk jobs. That reservation price gives the wage increase that will persuade the worker to accept a job with an unpleasant characteristic such as the risk of injury. Further, the worker will switch over to a risker job if the market compensating wage differential exceeds the worker's reservation price. However, firms choose whether to offer a risk environment or to offer a safe environment to their workers. So, from the demand side, the firms that offer a risk environment must pay higher wages, and the firm that offers a safe environment must invest in safety. So, the firm offers whichever environment is more profitable. So, while comparing both that whether the firm should go with a risk environment or should invest in safety and provide a safety environment to the workers, it depends on the profitability, that which environment is going to give him most profit. So, the market compensating wage differential is the amount of extra wage or money required to convince the marginal worker, which means the last worker hired, to move to the riskier job. If a few workers enjoy working in jobs that have high probability of injury, and if these type of jobs demand relatively few workers, then the market wage differential may go wrong way, which means we are saying that risk premium, the wage premium should be high for the workers, those who would like to work in a risk environment. But that theory of wage differential does not work always. Sometimes it may go wrong in that way if the supply and demand for this risk jobs and supply of these workers, those who want to work in a risk environment, or they love risk. Risk jobs will pay lower wages in that case. So, in this lecture, we will discuss about the wage structure and wage distribution in the economy, and we will measure the inequality in the wage distribution in the economy through different measures. We have seen that the laws of supply and demand determines the structure of wages in the labor market. Therefore, there is bound to be some inequality in the allocation of rewards among the workers. So, some workers will typically get much higher earnings than others. In the end, the observed wage dispersion reflects two fundamentals of the labor market. One is there exist productivity differences among the workers. So, greater the productivity differences, the more unequal wage distribution will be there in the economy. Second, the rate of return of skills that varies across labor markets and over time. So, while responding to the changes in the demand and supply for the skills, the rate of return to the skills that varies. So, if the greater the rewards of skills, the greater the wage gap between the skilled and unskilled workers, and more unequal distribution of the income. So, in this lecture, we will examine the factors that determines the shape of the wage distribution, which means why a few workers get very large share of the rewards distributed by the labor market in the economy, why there is a skewed distribution. Now, the shape of this wage distribution across the globe has changed in a very historic way. If you look at the data, top 1% of the individuals aged over 20 earns 19.6% of national income at world level. So, this is the data which we have collected from World Inequality Database. You can see it is a long database from 1900 to 2022, which means over 100 years. In this figure, we have taken into consideration that the top 1% population or the individuals over those who are over age 20, their share to the national income. At world level, you can see it is 19.6% in 2022, and this varies across the countries. In United States, it is 20.9%, whereas in France it is 12.7%. You can see in Germany it is 10.3%, in China it is 15.7%, in South Africa you can see it is 19.3%, and in United Kingdom it is 10.2%. So, the point here is that it varies across the state, across the countries, and the magnitude of share of the national share is concentrated roughly 10 to 20% at the top level. When we see the top 10% national share, you can see top 10% of the individuals in above 20 age of 20, they have the national share of 50%, more than 50% at the world level, and you can see how it varies across the countries. In United States it is 48%, in France it is 34%, in Germany it is 34%, in China it is 43.4%, in South Africa you can see it is 65%. So, while comparing this with bottom 50%, bottom 50% of the individuals and their share to the national income, at the world level it is just 8%. So, bottom 50% of the individuals, they are just having the national income share at 8% globally. You can see it varies. In France it is 20%, in Germany it is 20%, its United Kingdom it is 20%, and this variation has happened over a period of time, and you can see the trends in the variation. However, these trends become widen in last 20-30 years. So, it has been observed that there was a sizable increase in inequality as the wage gap between high skilled and low skilled workers, it has increased over the period of time. Further, the wage dispersion within a particular skill group also has gone up rapidly. So, there are different kind of skills which are there, and within that particular skill group, the wage dispersion has increased significantly. So, a great deal of research has been established that no single culprit can explain the changes in the wage structure, the way it has changed over the period of time and why it was so skewed. However, the changes in the labor market institutions and in the economic conditions seems to have worked jointly to create this historic shift in how labor market allocates its rewards among the workers. So, both labor market and the macroeconomic conditions are responsible for that. Let us discuss some of the key factors which are responsible for this skewed distribution. Wage inequality in the labor market can arise from various factors. First and foremost factor is skill and education. Workers with different levels of skill and education often command different wages in the labor market. High skilled workers such as those with advanced degrees or specialized trainings typically earn high wages due to the higher demand for these kind of expertise. However, low skilled workers may face low wages due to the abundance of labor in less skilled sector. So, skill and education play a significant role in wage inequality in the labor market. Second is the technology and automation. The way technological advancement and automation is happening in the process of production that can disrupt the labor market by replacing certain jobs with machines or requiring workers to acquire new skills to remain employable in the labor market. So, jobs that can be easily automated or outsourced tend to offer lower wages, while the position that requires specialized skills or expertise may command higher wages. So, the technological intervention and advancement and automation plays a significant role in wage inequality in the labor market. Next is globalization. In 21st century, almost all the countries, they are operating in a globalized world. They are more in open economy. So, the increased globalization has led to integration of economies as well as labor market in the world. So, almost all the economies, they have realized that the growth can only be achieved while participating and integrating in the world economy. So, globalization has facilitated trade and economic growth. It has also intensified competition for jobs and put downward pressure on wages in certain industries, particularly those that can be outsourced to lower cost industries. Further, market power. Market power plays a significant role in creating wage inequality in the economy. Wage inequality can be aggravated by disparities in the bargaining power between employer and employees. So, in industries where labor unions are weak or there is no existence of these labor unions, employer may have greater leverage to set wages at a lower level. Whereas, the workers in highly unionized sectors may negotiate higher wages and they can have a better working condition by going with some negotiation power, bargaining power with the employer. Further, we have already discussed the labor market discrimination. So, discrimination plays a significant role in wage inequalities and the outcome in the labor market. Discrimination based on the factors such as race, gender, ethnicity, age or disability can contribute to this wage inequality in the economy. So, certain groups may face systematic barriers to enter into the labor market to find jobs and advancement in their career, which results in the low wages and limited opportunities for career growth. Next is the occupational segregation. Occupational segregation may lead to wage inequality in the labor market. Means we have segregated some works in terms of gender. Like when we talk about occupational segregation, segregation refers to the concentration of certain demographic groups in specific occupations or industries. So, these occupations are meant for these group of people or these occupations are meant for these industries. You can take for example, women. Women are often overrepresented in lower paying fields such as caregiving, administrative support, while men dominate with the high paying sectors such as technology, engineering, finance, trade, transport. So, this occupational segregation leads to some kind of wage inequality in the labor market. Sometimes it may happen that the policy decisions may lead to wage inequality in the labor market, like government policies such as minimum wage laws, taxation policies, social welfare programs can influence wage inequality directly or indirectly. So, policies that promote equitable access to education, training and healthcare can help to mitigate these wage disparities, while tax policies that favor the wealthy and or deregulate in favor of the corporate houses, which may worsen the inequality in the labor market. So, policies have certain impacts creating inequalities in the labor market. Overall, if you look at the wage inequality in the labor market is a complex phenomena which is influenced by a combination of economic, social and political factors. So, to address wage inequality, it is often required to have a comprehensive policy approach which aims at promoting equitable access to education and training and strengthening labor market institutions like unions, combating discrimination which is a social outcome and fostering inclusive growth. So, overall the policy has to be taken into consideration that how we can improve equitable access to education and training, strengthening labor market institutions and reduce discrimination which may foster inclusive growth in the economy. That is what the sustainable development goal agendas talks about. Now, if you look at the empirical research, the studies on wage distribution in the economy, empirical studies, most of the studies they have studied the shape of the wage distribution. So, how the wage distribution takes shape in the economy. Most of them have used the human capital model as a point of departure. So, this human capital approach have proved particularly in both developed and developing countries. This approach has proved popular because it helps us to understand many of the key characteristics of wage distribution that are typically observed in modern labor market. In human capital framework, if you remember, the wage differentials exist not only because of some workers accumulate more human capital than the others, but also because young workers are still accumulating skills and they are foregoing earnings, whereas old workers are collecting the return from the prior investment. So, it is a combination of both acquiring skills and having experience. The human capital model also provides an interesting explanation for the positive skewness of this wage distribution in the economy. If you remember our human capital model, which we discussed, that a worker invests in human capital up to the point where the marginal rate of return to the investment equals the rate of discount. So, this is the stopping rule. This stopping rule generates a positive skew distribution of wage, even if the distribution of ability in the population is symmetric. Let us discuss with an example that how this happens. Suppose in the economy, 1/3 of the workforce is composed of low ability workers, another 1/3 is composed of medium ability workers, and the remaining 1/3 is composed of high ability workers. Further, suppose all the workers have the same rate of discount. In that case, let us try to understand how economy distributes its wage distribution happens in the economy. So, here if you look at this graph, we have taken the human capital, acquiring human capital on the x axis, and the y axis we have taken the rate of interest or the discount rate. And we have assumed that all the workers in the economy, they have the same discount rate. So, the discount rate is fixed for everyone, it is same. Now, how much of human capital this each group of the workers they will acquire, it completely depends on the marginal rate of return. So, marginal rate of return to the low ability workers is guided by this marginal revenue function, marginal rate of return function, and it intersects with the discount rate at point A, and you can see that that group of workers they acquire only HL amount of human capital. Further, the workers those who are having high ability, they are guided with their marginal rate of return and with their marginal rate of return they are at point B. So, they acquire human capital of H amount of human capital. Whereas, one third those who are with medium ability, now they are guided with their marginal rate of return, they are going to have the intersection with their discount rate and at point C. So, they are going to acquire only H star amount of human capital. So, based on the ability, they are guided by their marginal rate of returns, which leads to acquire a difference in the human capital, means year of schooling. So, they enter with, to the labor market with this difference in the human capital, which is because of their difference in the ability. So, high ability workers therefore have higher wages than low ability workers in the labor market because of two distinct reasons. First, high ability workers would earn more than low ability workers even if both groups acquire the same amount of human capital, because the ability itself is a characteristic that increases the productivity and earnings in the labor market. So, that is the first point. Even if they are going to have the same amount of human capital, their outcome is going to be different in terms of productivity and earnings in the labor market. Further, high ability workers also earn more because they acquire more human capital because of they are more able. So, put it differently, the positive correlation between the skill, the human capital and the ability, that stretches out wages in the population and generates a positive skewed distribution. Now, because they are more capable or more ability, they are going for more human capital, as a result they are earning more. That is one line of argument. Another line of argument is that even if they are going to, both the groups are they are going to have the same human capital, they are going to earn more because of their ability, which leads to higher productivity and earnings in the labor market. So, high ability workers therefore have higher wages than low ability workers in the labor market. Now, how can we measure this inequality in the income distribution? So, measuring inequality in the income distribution involves various statistical methods and indices that are designed to quantify the extent of disparity among the individuals or the households in terms of their income level. Let us discuss about some of the indices, the measures through which we can measure this inequality in the income distribution. First, the widely used measure is the Gini coefficient. The Gini coefficient is one of the most widely used measure in the income inequality. It ranges from 0 to 1, where 0 represents the perfect equality, which means everyone has the same income, whereas 1 represents the perfect inequality, which means one person has all the income. So, higher Gini coefficient indicates a greater inequality in the economy. So, it is calculated by plotting the Lorenz curve. We will discuss about more on this, which explains the cumulative share of income received by bottom, let us say 10%, 20%, 30% of the population against the cumulative share of the total population. We will discuss about more on this, how we can estimate this Gini coefficient and what exactly the Lorenz curve is. Now, another coefficient through which you can measure this income inequality is Thale index. The Thale index provides another measure of income inequality that takes into account both within group and between group disparities. It decomposes the total inequality into two components. One is inequality within the group, means intra-group inequalities. The economy is divided within so many socio-economic and demographic characteristics. So, there are so many inequalities and there are so many intersections are there. So, through Thale index we can estimate the inequality within the groups, means intra-group inequality, and also we can estimate the inequality between the groups means intergroup inequalities. This Thel index ranges from 0 to positive infinity. With higher values, it indicates that greater the inequality in the economy. Another index is used as is the percentile ratio. Percentile ratio compares the income of individuals or the households at different points of the income distribution. For example, the ratio of income at 90th percentile to the income at the 10th percentile. That provides an insight into the income gap between high and low earners in the economy. This is also widely used measure while measuring income inequality. Another measure is Palmer ratio. The Palmer ratio compares the income share of top 10% of the population to the income share of bottom 40%. This indices focus on the relative income of wealthiest and the poorest segment of the population. So, this gives a comparative index. Another method to estimate income inequality is the mean and median income. So, comparing mean or average and the median income provides a simple measure of income distribution. So, if the mean income is substantially higher than the median income, it suggests that a small group of high earners is pulling the average wage up, indicating that there is greater inequality in the economy. Another measure is the decomposition analysis. The decomposition analysis breaks down the income inequality into various determinants such as education, occupation, gender, race, region. So, we can measure this income inequality by using any of these measures, and we can find out that at what degree of inequality exists in the economy. So, this helps to identify the drivers of inequality and inform the targeted policy interventions. Now, as we discussed, there are several measures are there to measure the extent of inequality in an income distribution. Most of these measures are based on the calculation of how much income goes to particular segment of the distribution. So, to examine that how exactly it happens, let us consider an extreme example. Suppose we rank all the households according to their income level from lowest to the highest, and let us now break the population of the household into 5 groups of equal size. So, the first quintile contains the 20% of the household with the lowest income, and the fifth quintile contains the 20% of the household with the highest income. So, this is how we have distributed into 5 quintiles. The entire distribution has been distributed into 5 quintiles. Now, we can calculate how much income accrues to the households in each quintile. So, if every household in this example earn the same income, so that there will be a perfect income equality if each quintile is having the same earnings, same distribution, same income. So, it would be the case of that 20% of the income accrues to the first quintile, 20% of the income accrues to the second quintile, 20% of the income is accrues to the third quintile, and so on and so forth. So, we can summarize this data graphically by relating the cumulative share of income accruing these various groups. So, here if you look at it, how we can graphically present this is that on this box, on this x axis on the lower side, we have taken the share of the households, and on this side we have taken the share of income. So, what we are saying is that when we distribute it into 5 quintiles income distribution, we are saying that the bottom 20%, first quintile is having 20% of income, second quintile is having, second 20% is having another 20% of income, third quintile is having another 20% of the income, fourth quintile is having another 20% of the income, and the fifth quintile is having another 20% of the income. Now, if you join these points, you can find it will go like this. So, point A to B, now it is perfectly equal, the distribution is perfectly equal. Now, let us take for example, of how income distributions happens in the economy. In this table, we have taken the data of the US income distribution data of 2010. Now, you can see the first quintile's distribution share of income is 0.034. So, as the cumulative share is 0.034. The second quintile is having 0.086, the third quintile is having 0.147, the fourth quintile is having 0.23, the fifth quintile is having 0.500. So, you can see the cumulative, if you keep on adding, the second quintile is having, with both first and second quintile, they are having 0.12 share of income. The fourth quintile is having 50% of the income up to the fourth quintile, the cumulative income share, which means 80% of the people, they are just having 50% of the income share, top 20% of the people, they are having another 50% of the income share. So, the point from A to B is called the perfect equality Lorenz curve. Lorenz curve is derived from the actual distribution of the household income. So, here the Lorenz curve, which is a 45-degree line, this 45-degree line Lorenz curve is a perfect equality Lorenz curve. In fact, the construction of this Lorenz curve suggests that the more inequality in an income distribution, the further away from the actual Lorenz curve will be from this 45-degree line. None of the economies you will have in that 45-degree line. So, in every economy there is some kind of income inequalities are there. So, you move away from that perfect equality line of Lorenz curve, 45-degree line. So, to examine, let us consider a world in which all income accrues to the fifth quintile. So, top fifth of the household, they are having all the incomes. In that case, it will be a perfect inequality. So, the Lorenz curve would look like a mirror image of the letter L. So, it would lie flat along with this horizontal axis, so that 0% of the income distribution occurs up to 80% of the household, then it just shoot up, and that is 100% for the last quintile. So, the intuition behind this construction of this Lorenz curve suggests that the area between the perfect equality Lorenz curve and the actual Lorenz curve can be used to measure the inequality. So, how we can measure inequality through this Lorenz curve? The idea was that none of the economies can lie on this perfect equality line. So, they move away from this perfect equality line. So, to measure the degree of inequality, this can be estimated simply by taking the ratio, the area between this perfect equality Lorenz curve, the perfect equality Lorenz curve, the area is this one, A, B, C triangle, minus the actual Lorenz curve, this is the actual Lorenz curve. So, if you take away this actual area under this Lorenz curve and the perfect equality of the Lorenz curve, then you are left with this shaded area. So, this shaded area divided by the area under perfect equality, means this ABC triangle, that will give you a coefficient which is called Gini coefficient. So, Gini coefficient measures the degree of inequality in the economy, which is nothing but it presents the area between perfect equality Lorenz curve and the actual Lorenz curve, the difference between these two divided by the area under perfect equality Lorenz curve, and the value will range from 0 to 1. So, this definition implies that Gini coefficient would be 0 when the actual distribution of the income exhibits perfect equality, and would be equal to 1 when the distribution of the income exhibits perfect inequality, that is when all the income goes to the highest quantile. Although an increase in this Gini coefficient represents an increase in the income inequality, there are certain delicacies that are being overlooked while summarizing this entire shape of this income distribution into a single number, either it is between 0 to 1. Let us consider one example how there are certain loopholes are there. Consider for an example the impact of a shift in the income from the bottom quintile to the top quintile. Let us say some structural changes in the economy happens, which has given a favorable change of this distribution, and there is a shift in the income from the bottom quintile to the top quintile. There is some changes has happened in the economy. So, this shift obviously increase the Gini coefficient. So, it turns out that we can obtain a similar numerical increase in the Gini coefficient by transferring some amount of income from say second to third quintile or third to top quintile. So, although these numerical increases in the Gini coefficient is the same, the two redistribution is not identical. They are not same, the distribution, the way it has happened, it is not the same, moving from bottom to top quintile while moving from second to third quintile. Because of this ambiguity, many studies use additional measure of inequality to find the robustness of the result. So, another commonly used measures are like 90 to 10% wage gap and 50 to 10% wage gap. So, 90 to 10% wage gap gives the percent wage differential between workers at 90th percentile of the income distribution and the worker at the 10th percentile. So, the 90-10 wage gap provides a measure that range of the income distribution between this 90 to 10. So, the 50 to 10 wage gap gives the percent wage differential between the workers at the 50th percentile and the worker at 10th percentile. So, 50-10 wage gap provides a measure of inequality between the middle class and the low income workers. So, these are some additional measures which are used to find the robustness of these different measures. So, one measure may not give you a perfect or right result. So, to find the robustness, you have to test the results by using 2-3 indices. Now, if we summarize our discussion, we can say that there is a positive correlation between human capital investments and ability, which implies that wage distribution is positively skewed, so that workers in the upper tail of the wage distribution gets a disproportionately large share of the national income. So, it is because of the ability, because of the human capital, which leads to a kind of skewed wage distribution in the economy. However, we cannot say that there is only single factor which can explain this unequal distribution of the income. As we discussed, there are multiple factors like economic factors, social factors and political factors which are responsible for this unequal distribution of wages in the economy. In our next lecture, we will discuss about why did wage inequality increase. As we see through the graphs, the data provided by World Inequality Database, this wage inequality has increased over the period of time. So, in our next lecture, we will discuss about why did wage inequality increase. Thank you.